Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How are we getting on? What a brand new Starfield video. So, Gamescom is trucking along, and we have a little bit of extra details regarding the new Starfield update that came out the other day. And we got an interview with Tim Lamb, who's one of the creative leads on Starfield as well, talking a little bit more about Shattered Space as well. So, got a couple of cool details there that'll be interesting to dive into. So, first up, kind of a couple of problems, I suppose, I want to touch on before we dive too much into the new stuff. And that is, with the new update that's come out, I have personally noticed a couple of issues. Firstly, when I logged in, my character had saved and logged out in the cockpit of my ship. And I turned around, and the door was gone. As it turned out, that was a rendering issue, so not the end of the world, and I was able to just walk through it as if it was there anyway. Walking outside the ship and then coming back inside, reloaded the interior, problem solved. So that's one issue that I noticed. If you happen to have saved inside your ship prior to updating the game, as the Rev-8 update is now available, you can download that if you'd like to. That's something you might want to be aware of, that if you're inside your ship, some things might go a bit funny until you leave and come back in. One of the other things that has come up with the new update is, not too surprisingly, updates always do this, it's created some issues with mods. Where updates normally would say they break mods, in this case, strangely, after the update, it seems to be the mods that break the game rather than the other way around. But, hey, little variation. The mod in question that affected me, and it seems to be the case for other people as well, are mods that change your HUD in some way, as you're generally exploring in particular. So I had a mod that changes the chronomark display down in the bottom left corner of the screen that gives you a load of planetary data. I had a mod that added extra details on there, and unfortunately that broke the rest of my HUD. So, basically I had to go through all my mods one by one and disable that to solve the problem, because I couldn't activate any containers, I couldn't activate any workbenches, and I couldn't even activate any doors. So, yeah, that was a strange issue with that particular mod as of the new update. So, yeah, a bit weird. Funny thing is, as I say, the mod worked just fine, it's just I couldn't use the rest of the UI with it. So, bit of an odd thing, but you might want to know about that if you are playing a modded save before you dive into this new update. So, speaking of this new update, the big thing on it obviously is the Rev-8, the new vehicle. It's quite good fun. If you want to get one of these, you basically need to land at any spaceport and go over to the Ship Services Technician, and there is a new menu option on the dialogue tree that gives you the option to buy a vehicle. It costs you 25,000 credits, so not really vast sums in the scheme of spaceships and things like that anyway, not for Starfield. So you just buy that, and the in-universe version is it installs a module onto your ship. There's no actual module though, it just provides you with a vehicle that will be sat outside the landing bay when your ship lands on a planet. Once you've got the thing, you can go into a new menu there, you can adjust it the same way as you would change things in the ship builder menu. Basically the same sort of principle, except we have less options to change. In the case of the Rev-8, all we can change is the colours. But that is quite cool. We've got the same colour options that we get for any other part of the ship. So you've got 3 sort of colour zones, and you can sort of pick any colour you like using the usual set of sliders. Come up with any design you happen to like, whether somewhat more NASA punk or something slightly more obnoxious if you happen to want to go down that road. So, I took the thing out for a little bit of a spin, and I had a bit of a drive around on the moon, fell into a few craters. Barrett seemed to be having a good time. The different companions have slightly different reactions as you'd expect to the vehicle as a whole. Barrett seems to be having a laugh. Most of them seem to respond well to going fast, or at least the ones I've tried out so far. Sarah was a little less enthusiastic about some things, particularly when I crashed into trees, which, yeah, some of you will be getting flashbacks to my playing Cyberpunk and my driving on that, I'm sure, during the course of this video. But, yeah. Sarah's reaction to crashes is not great. Barrett, I don't really know, because I was driving around on the moon. He didn't seem to have much to say. The one that really made me chuckle, and if you want to do a lot of driving around, I would recommend sticking with, is Vasco, because he's there denying getting anything out of going fast, but he's also the one who taps on the side of the Rev-8 when you're not moving. His sort of idle animation is to try and encourage you to go somewhere, which made me laugh quite a bit. And he's also the one who sticks his arms out when you do a jump and does a load of funny stuff like that. And yeah, Vasco's reaction to this whole thing is absolutely hilarious, and the little animations in there that are attached to him as well are really, really cool. Obviously, he jumps in the back rather than in the passenger seat, so it's all a bit unique there. But if nothing else, I would definitely encourage you to take Vasco out with you on a few drives, because he's quite fun. All in all, the thing is pretty easy to drive. It's pretty self-explanatory. It aligns with the way the controls basically work anyway, so there won't be any particular surprises. There's a separate button for forward boost and for a jump boost, so options for those. It kind of flies around a bit. It responds differently on different planets to a certain extent, depending on gravity and what's on the ground and that sort of thing, which is cool. Took it out for a spin on Mars as well. It was kind of fun. Being on the Swai was a bit of an issue because so many trees and forests in that area, and yeah, navigating my way through those was a bit more challenging. You can drive this thing in first person if you like, but I would probably say that's not the best option, especially if you don't have a particularly wide field of view. If you've pushed your field of view out massively wide, it won't be so bad, or if you've got a crazy ultra-wide monitor or something like that, you'll probably be able to see a bit more clearly. But from a standard sort of 16:9 perspective, it doesn't really go that well in first person. If you're playing with a controller, you might find it a little bit smoother to drive as well than with a mouse and keyboard. In my little bit of testing there, it seemed to be the case. But on the whole, I thought the thing was quite cool, quite fun, and I'm enjoying driving it around. I know there's a few people who are a bit disappointed that there's no ship module for putting the actual vehicle in, you know, that you can build in like a separate room. My initial thought was that they could have done something with a landing bay, but I'll throw a picture up now and you can see why they haven't. Because compared to a landing bay, the vehicle is actually pretty huge. Basically, there wouldn't be any room for it, and they'd have to have a double-sized one or something, which I suppose is doable. It would also force you to rebuild your ship, potentially, as well, or redesign your ship, if you wanted to have the vehicle if they went down that road, which some people would be fine with, others would be less enthusiastic about. Another cool little detail is, by virtue of the fact we have a vehicle management screen and the option to cycle between different vehicles, even though there's now only the one in the game, it certainly implies that there will be other vehicles coming to Starfield on down the line. So who knows what that might be, but the infrastructure to add more later is now in the game, which is very, very cool. So, I don't know, maybe we'll get like a quad bike or a motorbike or something like that would be quite fun. On the other end of the scale, who knows, maybe we'll get something slow and heavily armoured with a really big gun that's more like a tank. That's just two examples that leap to mind at the moment, but it'd be interesting to see what we might get on down the future. So, moving on from the Rev-8 a little bit, how about what's coming next? Well, we got a release date for Shattered Space over the last couple of days, so that's coming out at the end of September, 30th of September to be exact. So looking forward to that, and we'll get to head off into the territory of House Va'ruun and their homeworld. So a few little spoilers potentially here, nothing huge, but little details. If you want to avoid them, you might want to duck out, but there's your FYI. There's some cool stuff. Tim Lamb had a brief discussion regarding, obviously, the new vehicle and Shattered Space as well yesterday, which is quite cool. So we now know that Shattered Space will kick off by heading to a derelict star station, which will set the ball rolling for the rest of this story. I don't know too much about it, other than the fact it looks suitably ominous, spooky, and abandoned, so that should be fun. Hopefully it's a decent size and a decent space to explore, but we'll see how that goes. And from there, eventually, we will make our way to Va'ruun Kai, which is the homeworld of House Va'ruun, and their capital city, which is Dazra City. That looks like it's going to be quite cool. We've seen a few shots of it, obviously lots of purple sky and atmosphere and stuff. From the sound of things, it's going to be very, very much focused on this planet, and particularly the city. I'm reading between the lines here, but Tim Lamb did say they'd focused on the city and that environment and made a very sort of detailed, handcrafted environment. That does kind of imply limited size. So hopefully a smaller area with a lot of depth as opposed to wide and shallow, which is pros and cons. Obviously wide and deep would be ideal, but the focus is on the city anyway. So it seems like my guess here is that it'll be a bit like when you first arrive in, say, New Atlantis or something like that. There is a lot of stuff going on there. There's a lot of places to explore, a lot of side quests and things to interact with, places to find and that sort of thing. And you can spend quite a long time there before you move on to anything else quite easily. Same thing is basically true of Aquila City as well, although that's a little bit smaller. So my guess is it's going to be somewhere along those lines in terms of its sort of focus and scale and things. Another cool thing that Tim Lamb mentioned was that within the House Va'ruun faction, there are kind of sub-factions. He talked about minor houses that you will interact with, so I'm assuming like clans or groups of families and that sort of thing, sort of mini-factions within the larger House Va'ruun faction, which is interesting. They've kind of they're an isolated group, they're away from the rest of society, so their sort of internal structure is going to mirror its own sort of separate civilization in a way, which is going to be quite interesting to check out as well. So the last of the cool things that he did mention is that we'll be getting new weapons, new gear, and new items with the Shattered Space expansion. So definitely looking forward to checking that out. New weapons, refresh the pool is always good. Looking forward to trying some of that stuff out. Hopefully some more, I imagine, particle themed stuff, with that being sort of the direction that House of Room generally lean in. New gear. Well, gear is a bit of an odd choice of words. I'm guessing it'll apply to spacesuits and stuff like that. More unique Varun-themed spacesuits should be quite good fun. And items, that could be anything from clutter to crafting and food and outfits, hopefully. Definitely some cool Varun outfits would definitely be something I'd like to see. I imagine that will be on the list as well. One thing that has yet to be mentioned that I'm interested to see whether or not there's any sort of build on is the House Varun background that you can pick at the start of the game. When you set your character up, you can go with the Serpent's Embrace background, which gives you a connection to House Varun and makes you a follower of the Great Serpent, or in the case of my character's headcanon at least, a former follower. So seeing how that might connect and interact and what that effect that might have while you're there is going to be an interesting thing to explore. And obviously there's a certain someone who might have some input on the whole House of Rune thing as well. So I'm definitely curious to see what's going on with Shattered Space. Just to mention this again, mentioned it in a previous video, but in the past Todd Howard has mentioned the extended plan is to release new expansions like Shattered Space on a yearly basis for Starfield, so there will be a follow-up, there'll be other things on down the line. As to their sort of release and sale and marketing plan for it, they haven't really said anything specific. It's being described as an expansion rather than anything else, so chances are there will be a small fee attached to it. But yeah, looking forward to this. Some people have been asking about whether or not you have to have a specific level or you have to have gotten through to New Game Plus or anything like that in order to engage with this content. I haven't heard an answer either way. Bethesda are currently not sharing details on that. Based on Bethesda's previous expansions and DLC and stuff, generally speaking, they have a recommended level, but otherwise you can just go and get into it once you've got the update. But they might take it a different direction this time, so you may or may not have to complete the main story first. But once we find out, we'll let you know. Anyway, there we go. That's the latest series of updates on where Starfield is sitting at the moment. Definitely some cool stuff in there. Looking forward to diving into it. At the end of September, we'll check out Shattered Space. Should be cool. And yeah, be interesting to find out what the deal is with House Varun and to cruise around somewhat more in the Rev-8 as well. So, hope you guys found that useful and informative. If you did, please consider dropping subs and likes. I very much appreciate. Down below, we've got social media links and channel memberships as well. If you're interested in supporting the channel that way, I very, very, very much appreciate it. And if you get a chance, join us for live streams too. We'll, of course, when the time comes, be playing some more Starfield. And for now, we've got Fallout 76, Fallout London, and a little bit of Stalker on the go as well, which has been good fun to explore. So do join us for that. But for now, thank you very much for watching. I look forward to speaking to you all very, very soon.